I do want to start off with the Mets because we're both Mets fans, and they've obviously, I think they're the most active team this offseason. They made the most moves, and they were the last team to make the move with the Francisco Lindor extension. I'm just so excited for this team because now we're into the Steve Cohen era, and it just to me it feels completely different. This team should be very, very competitive. I like the depth that they added. They added the big star as well, and now it's time for them to show it, and they got to now show their improvement. I do think this team should be vying for the NL East, should be in the hunt for a wild card spot as well. And honestly, I'm just really excited for this team. I'm excited to hopefully be back at Citi Field soon, and should definitely be fun.
Yeah, I mean, first off, like you said, the first priority for me this summer is I got to get back to Citi Field,
Yeah.
and I cannot wait to do that. Just to be sitting in the stands, having some Shake Shack, watching the game. If the Mets blow it late like they always do, that is what it is. But it'll be great to be back. As far as the team, though, and first off, I remember way back, God, when was this? It was September, August, when Cohen, that the deal was finally
September.
confirmed. Yeah, so I just remember ever since then, I have been in a perpetual state of hypeness. That's what I'll call it. I have been so hyped for this team and so incredibly excited. My energy level, I cannot remember a time in my life when I've been this energized about being a Mets fan. Now, I don't want to spend all this talking about Cohen, but, I remember when I was a kid, I'm like, 10, 11, and I'm walking into the stadium one time, and I see this cardboard sign on the ground. It says like, "Hey, Wilpons, trade this." And it's like when they were talking about trading Jose Reyes and all this. And like from my youngest days, the Mets ownership has hung like a sad cloud over this team. So now for Steve Cohen to be here, I'm just incredibly excited. But to get into the specifics of the team, first thing off the bat, Michael Conforto. I mean, we could talk about Lindor, and I think he's a key, and I'm so hyped about the deal. And I know we'll get into that with Kayla later, but I think this is a huge, important year for Conforto. He's often, look, you find this you see this in DeGrom all the time too. Guys with the kind of more subtle personalities, not as flashy, not as big. They don't draw a lot of attention, even though their skills warrant that kind of attention. And Conforto, for the last couple of years, I think has been kind of slept on. I mean, last year, I get it was a shortened season, but the guy batted over 300. I mean, he was on pace for about 30 home runs with a full season. He obviously injured towards the end, which I think hampered him a little bit, but this is a contract year. He's going to want to prove himself. I would love for the Mets to try to get a deal done, before the season ends, because, I don't want to lose him. But obviously with Scott Boras being his agent, you never know. But I think the Mets offense this year, I think kind of starts and ends with Conforto personally.
He's a player that I think, I mean, he was very, very good before. And I think he kind of came into that, I don't want to say national light, but he hit 300, was still hitting the home runs. Because before he was a 30 home run guy, but hit lower for average, like in that 260, 270 range. And then last year he hit 300. And, I mean, he's a guy, I agree with you, because if he's rocking and rolling, and then you get Alonso, Lindor, I mean, I love this Mets offense. I mean, I got to say, I think they're going to be top 4, top 3 in the whole National League. I really do think that. I mean, you look at just the depth that they have with the star power, especially if Conforto is hitting 300 and that stuff, because you have Lindor, Conforto, hopefully Alonso can get it back going. I know he had a nice spring. Dom Smith as well. I mean, then you have McNeil, like your average guys. You have Nimmo, who's your on-base guy. I think with the bats, this Mets offense should be really good. And if just they don't hit like 200 with runners in scoring position, I think it may have been even less than that. Yeah, like if they could just hit like a normal team, an average team in runners in scoring position, they should score a ton of runs. And that's something that I'm probably most excited for. Usually it's the pitching with the Mets, but this year I really do think the offense should be one of the best in the National League. I think I could say confidently top 4, but I'm even thinking top 3, top 2. I really like what they're doing on offense, and even more than the pitching.
Yeah, I mean, look, our my whole life, your whole life, the Mets have not been known to be an offensive powerhouse. I mean, you think about even when they went to the World Series. I mean, who were you scared of in that lineup? Daniel Murphy, who was on a hot streak, Lucas Duda. I mean, nobody, Michael Kadire, who was 100 years old at that point. Like, even when the Mets have been good, the last which has been very few, the last few 10 years or so, the offense is not what carried them. So this lineup, honestly, is probably the deepest lineup I've ever seen. I mean, you go to right off the top, Nimmo's going to probably be your everyday leadoff hitter. Then you're going to go probably Lindor in the 2-hole, Conforto in the 3. You're going to have Alonso cleaning up probably. I mean, then I would assume after that, Dom Smith. I think Dom, I know he's not a left fielder by trade, but I think he can play a competent left field. I think it'll be okay. And then after Dom, I mean, you're going to have Jeff McNeil, who honestly is probably one of your best hitters and probably in the sixth hole, which is insane. I mean, this is a guy, just a couple of years ago who was in the top third of the lineup because, he's one of their best hitters. Now they're so deep, they can bat him further down in the order. And, then you're going to have JD Davis, who, what's interesting with Davis, and I don't know how you feel. I honestly, and this is going to be a bit of a hot take, maybe it could be a cold prediction, honestly, but I'm going to put this out there. I think that Luis Guillorme, my man with the Fu Manchu mustache, which I hope he brings back because that was elite. He will be the everyday third baseman by the end of the season. And, we can get into that a little bit here, but I don't know if you think that's a bold take on my part.
I don't think it's bold. He was so good. The one thing I like about Luis Guillorme, he can okay, the glove is great, and I think everyone talks about the glove. But last year, his bat turned on, and he was just a singles hitter and runners in scoring position. He was like the best hitter on the team with that, and that's something that I care a lot about. I mean, the home runs are great, and but the Mets, they got their home run hitters. They need guys that can get the runner in from third, do the little things. He does that really well. Davis is he's always like that Cinderella story, and you're like, when is he going to turn into the pumpkin? Like, you almost think eventually he's going to run, because he was like the best trade for Brody, and he's kind of that era of the Mets, and it's just, it will be interesting to see what he can do. I mean, I do agree with you. I actually think Guillorme, probably injuries too, I think could be an option. He's going to probably play a lot, especially because that depth with the Lindor trade, a lot of that depth went away. So now that kind of thrust Guillorme into it. But I mean, he's a guy that, and then also the defense, the mustache, then you had him making the play in spring training a few years ago when he caught the bat. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just like this, I like also the depth that the Mets have too. You have Jonathan VR coming off the bench. You have a lot. To me, this offense is going to be good. The defense will be, I think, a little worrisome, but when you're hitting that good, I don't think it's as much as a worry. I mean, Dom Smith, it could get, it could be a little rough out there at times, but I agree with you. I think he can play, especially if he's, hitting in 290, 300, you're going to obviously take his defense, but that's kind of the only area where you are rough. But even up the middle, I mean, Lindor's a great shortstop. I mean, I think he'll be fine there. I mean, Nimmo in center could also be a little rough too, but I think this offense is so good that it kind of offsets the defense.